Hello, everyone, and welcome to Thriving Through Disruption in collaboration with Dwight Mahalik. Thank you for joining us. As we know, the business environment is evolving faster than ever. Disruption has become the new norm, driven by technology shifts, market volatility, and global events. For consultants, this could make your role more critical and more demanding than ever before. Um, that is why we've developed today's session. We are pleased to be joined with Dwight, uh, who will guide us through how consultants can not only adapt to change, but also helps clients succeed in the face of uncertainty. Dwight is an international recognized management consultant and former chair of the International Council of Management Consulting Institutes, the global governing body for the profession. As president of Effective Managers, he has advised leaders worldwide on organizational design, accountability, and leadership, earning the respect of colleagues around the world. Before we begin, just a quick housekeeping notes. One, the webinar is being recorded and will be shared with all registrants after the session, along with all the resources that we have prepared for you. And second, please use the Q&A function to submit your questions at any time. Although we will reserve a time slot at the end of the session to go over those and address those questions with Dwight. With that, it is my pleasure, Dwight, to hand it over to you. Welcome, and the floor is yours.
Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate that, Gisette. And hello to everyone, and welcome to this session today. I'm always pleased to be able to host a session like this where we're talking about things that matter to all of us, which is the profession of management consulting and how we can collaborate in the best ways possible. So for the session today, we have four broad categories. The first one is the overview of the future of the profession of consulting. And in talking about that, I'll give you a bit of a lead up into some of the elements that are driving that and that we need to be aware of. I'll then move on to talk about the profession itself, CMC certification and ISO 20700, and how they differ, but also how they can really help us to differentiate ourselves in that changing marketplace. Um, just a couple of slides on why a CMC should take the ISO 20700 checklist. And I put that in because CMCs say, well, I'm already a certified management consultant. Isn't it going backwards? So just want to give you that insight, and then we'll end with questions and discussion. So feel free, please, to put questions into the question box, and the chat is open, so you can chat amongst yourselves as we go through this material. And in addition to that, there are some downloads that are in there that Gisette has posted, which are the materials that we promised you for this session. So you can follow along with your own copy. The material presented here today is based on my book, Consulting Through Uncertainty. It's been the top of my to-do list for over a year now, almost 2 years, in fact, to do a second edition of that. But some of the numbers I will be using today are updated. However, the fundamental concepts remain the same. It was co-authored is maybe a little strong, but it was supported by K-Mind Consulting, which is a strategy consulting company based in Shanghai. They're in fact the company the consulting firm that is going to be supporting and hosting the ICMCI conference later this month. So I was pleased to have had the opportunity to work with them. And any of you that can be in Shanghai for this event, go for it, because it's going to be amazing. So let's move into the content. The future of professions. So if we think about management consulting as a profession, let's think about professions generally. What's happening in professions, and this started about a decade ago and really was exacerbated and move forward more quickly throughout COVID. And what's happening is that professionals no longer have as strong a desire to become a professional member of an organization as they once did. In some, it's regulated. So if you want to be a medical doctor, you kind of have to join the College of Physicians and Surgeons. But if you're not regulated, there's the tendency to believe that information is so widely available now. What are the advantages to people who are joining unregulated professions to figure out how to do their work and to be able to do that? So that availability of knowledge, which is increasing all the time, is changing the way professionals change about institutes. So park that thought away for a minute because I will come back to that at the end because I think there's I think it's the wrong way of thinking, and I'll explain that at the end. The second part is the way that people who use the services of professionals is also changing, and that's changing because of that availability of knowledge. If you think about how we interacted with doctors, even a decade ago, it was very different than the way we do now. People are much more and feel much more in control of their destiny in terms of understanding their bodies, understanding their health, figuring out what's going on. They do have that access to knowledge. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to figure out how do I medicate this, why aren't I getting better, it's the medical professional that we turn to. So that creates this kind of a bit of a dichotomy that when you think about all of the professions, people often are able to do a lot of that work on their own that used to be done by the professionals, but the line is blurring between when people need to reach out to the professional to get that diagnostic capability that is available. So that is also plays out in organizations as organizations think about how they access knowledge instead of hiring a management consultant as they might have a few years ago. There's increasing examples of them hiring talent or in-house experts or in-house consultants to do the kind of work that we as professionals used to do for them. Um, the other aspect I'd like to raise, and I'm going to be giving you a few series of facts here as we go through this one, but the other aspect that's interesting and that we need to bear in mind is the perspective of client organizations. There is increasing pressure to improve results. If you look through from the International Monetary Fund for annual percentage changes. So this graph shows you what the percentage increase is in GDP. You can see the global economy took a big hit around the 2008 recession, and then again in 2020 in COVID. But throughout all of those, the developing countries, we have the key here. So the emerging markets and developing economies have been growing at a faster rate than the advanced economies and the world overall. If we look at what's happening right now as of July 2025, so just a couple of months ago, the growth projections are down a little bit from where they were a year ago, but they are showing that the global economy will be growing at a rate of about 3% per year. The advanced economies less than that, and the emerging economies and developing economies faster than that. So it really reinforces that coming out of COVID, we had that big uptick, as you saw in the previous slide. We had that big uptick, and that put a lot of pressure on organizations to recoup the losses of during COVID. And now this slowing global economy is increasing that pressure to try to maintain that type of growth. So our client organizations are hungry for increases in performance in a way that they haven't been for a while. And I think you would agree that you're feeling that. So then how do we as a consulting profession relate to that? Well, the first thing is we're still adding value. Last year in 2024, the global spend for for consulting services overall, so consulting services increased to over $1 trillion. That's the first time it hit $1 trillion. So there's no question that there's value being provided by consulting, and management consulting is a really big chunk of that pie. The other is HR, and the other is IT. But even in that, those divisions are blurring. Management consultants tend to have a broader scope in terms of the types of specialties that they have and still fall under our umbrella. So the second point I'd make, number three, is here. Those numbers relate to the numbers in the book, so I'm not giving you every aspect of the book, but just the highlights. So number three is access to talent is increasing. So client organizations are able to access expertise in ways that weren't available for before. And again, COVID really drove this much more quickly. So the acceptance of virtual meetings and the acceptance of virtual support have created this dynamic where organizations are more willing to access that talent. So instead of going down to the friendly neighborhood management consultant as they might have in the past, they can go to an online platform and find someone with that specialized expertise that they think they would need to help them solve that problem. That's a two-edged sword, though, from the perspective of the client organization, and I think it's the silver lining for us as management consultants. The issue that often happens in this situation or arises in this situation is that client organizations start attacking the problem at a symptomatic level. So there's a problem with communication inside the organization, so that they feel that they're going to need to improve the way in which they communicate across the silos that are developing in the organization. So they start investing in and may bring in expertise in terms of how do we communicate better, how do we build teams, how do we break down those silos. And these are all activities which in their own right might be okay, but they're operating at that symptomatic level. Communication isn't bad. Poor communication doesn't cause silos, so improving communication isn't going to break down silos. Those of us who are involved in accountability and authority and working as management consultants in the organization would doing a diagnostic analysis of what's happening would probably realize or find that those silos are as a result of a lack of clear accountability and authority in terms of how people will relate to each other. So that energy now being expended by client organizations at the symptomatic level isn't helping. So this is not a new story for you, but I really want to resolve that it's the danger to client organizations has increased. So this is something that we need to bear in mind, and I will be circling back to this one as well. The other point I wanted to mention about the consulting profession now is kind of the second side of the coin. So I'm talking about the client experience is changing, but from the perspective of the profession, the client relationship is also changing. It's really interesting. In polls, we'll find that clients are continuing to rate quite highly the performance of management consultants that provide them services, the nature of the work that they're doing, the type of relationship that was there. So in other words, the projects are meeting the needs that were scoped out, and yet the perception of ROI, that return on investment that organizations feel that they should be having as a result of hiring consultants, is going down. So while they feel they're getting the services they're asking for, there's a sense that the ROI isn't there. And that results primarily from an increasing understanding in client organizations that they need to be doing some of that heavy lifting themselves, or more of that heavy lifting in terms of what are the leave behinds, what is it that those client organizations have that they will be able to leverage after the consulting organization leaves. Here's some research that took place in Europe. Japanese consulting firm did this, and this was pre-COVID, but it's continuing to be a factor in how we work with organizations. And the traditional two category dichotomy is that you have very highly paid strategy consultants who come in and provide advice to the organization in terms of how to differentiate yourself in the marketplace and perform better. And then you have I called it the heavy lifting earlier, so I'll stay that. You have the heavy lifting where a client organization is trying to make a major change or a major implementation, and as a result, they pull in consulting resources to do a lot of the work for them and supporting the organization to make that change or make that implementation. So what's happening is that organizations are drifting away from that in a number of ways. One is they're not so happy simply to be able to get recommendations. The old story about the strategy sitting on the bookshelf, I think clients are finally realizing that that is not the way to be going. And I think we as consultants are realizing that more and more on ourselves. And clients are realizing that hiring the people for the heavy lifting and then them exiting the organization also isn't providing results because they want those leave behinds in terms of understanding, helping to diagnose the problems, helping to develop the solution, and then having enough knowledge transferred so that they can continue forward with those recommendations going forward. That's in parallel to that. We're seeing that client organizations are not signing for the big contracts that they used to. There's much more um, desire to compartmentalize or break up big projects into smaller pieces so that they will invest in the consulting to help solve the problem, to help with some of the implementation techniques or materials or methodologies. Then they will do some of it themselves, or they may farm another part out to another consulting firm. So they're being much more discretionary in terms of what they do. And the approval levels for external consulting tends to be higher in organizations than it used to be. So here's another really interesting one. In the clients, I talked about the increasing access to the talent pool. We're also seeing from the consulting profession side the rise of the freelance consultant. So more and more now, because of the availability of information and the availability of web-based communications, Zoom and all of the other tools that we have to work across borders, is that it's easier and easier to do cross-border virtual work than it ever was before. So just as client organizations can engage employees from different parts of the globe, or certainly from different parts of the country in which they operate, freelance consultants are also now able to make their services available across borders in ways that they never have. The difficulty for us in the profession is that many people style themselves as consultants, but in fact, they're selling time for money. Which brings me to the question that I ask you, what is a consultant? We've been talking about consulting. We've been talking about who is a professional, and the answer is pretty simple. Anybody that walks down to the nearby Staples and prints a business card that says I am a consultant can be a consultant, and that's true in most parts of the world. So that creates a challenge for us as a profession. How do we differentiate ourselves from those who are in the consulting industry? And I make this differentiation very clearly in the book, and I've lived it, that there's a huge difference between the industry, which is people, the industry of consulting, which includes people who are selling time for money. So an expert, somebody that's just retired as one of the best machine repair persons in a particular type of high industrial machinery, retires and then hires themselves out as a consultant to advise on the repair of those machines. So there's no diagnostic work in terms of understanding what the problem is for the client. The client knows what the problem is. I need this machine fixed and my employees can't do it. So I'm going to hire this person for so many hours to come in and train my people and help them do better work. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, this is an excellent way to get resources and expertise into your organization. Oops, I see that I can't even spell consultant. Sorry about that in the title. I haven't noticed that before. Or is it consult? No, we are okay. Good. Whew. I thought I had misspelled consultant. That'd be a horrible thing for a consultant to do. Uh, so anyway, how do we then, those of us who understand the difference between selling time and using a diagnostic capability to solve problems and identify issues at the roots, becomes a really important part of us doing it. So as a result of this, I am a consultant approach, there is an increasing Uberization of consulting where people will go online. There are platforms online. If you just search consulting online, you'll see all kinds of platforms pop up from all different countries around the world where people can register to be a consultant, or they can register to be a client, and they do the matching and take a little bit of the cut for putting people together. So it's something to bear in mind. So that brings us then to the consulting profession of the future. What do we do about all of this? I've given you a lot of facts now, and we really need to think about what are those impacts on us as a profession. So the first one is the pace of change. The pace of change is going to continue to increase. There's no question about that. Businesses, and I think all of you know this, businesses are under that pressure to grow. They need to continue their ability to do things in new and innovative ways. So we as management consultants need to struggle and work hard to keep ahead of that in terms of being able to add value to clients. So that pace of change is something we need to definitely keep in mind. The second is that disruption is here to stay. With the in everything that's been happening in the world, with the introduction of artificial intelligence as a very powerful tool, with the increasing technological advancements, it's just disruption can come from anywhere. It used to be industry-wide, now it can be organizations within industries. Whoever is doing the best will be able to take leadership and to take market share away from those who are not advancing at the same pace. So a lot of that is being driven by digitalization and virtualization. So the one thing I think we as management consultants need to bear in mind is that we need to stay ahead of that curve. So if we want to be consulting and valued by our client organizations, we need to be thinking about how can we use technology and how can we use virtualization to be able to improve our practices and improve our added value. How can we use tools that are now available to us to be more effective and more productive, and therefore adding that extra value. And in the doing of that, we manage to stay on the leading edge of the curve so that we have personal experiences in improving performance in organizations to work with our clients. And increasingly, there are other ways of learning about that. And I know CMC Canada is doing a lot of work to help us keep involved in doing this, in learning and staying ahead of the curve. So talking about, I mentioned artificial intelligence. I want to do a quick note on that. In my book, I had one section on a note on artificial intelligence, and this is one of the biggest reasons that I want to do the second edition. Is so much has changed since I wrote the book that we really need to address that. And I just want to give you one quick insight. I'll be talking about this more in a webinar we're doing, a professional development webinar we're doing in at the end of this month on October 21st, to differentiate between the complexity of work in different levels of the organization. And the one takeaway that I can't explain too much about the why now because we don't have the time, but a double underline is that you cannot automate professional work. That diagnostic capability of people to be able to draw from an infinite solution set those things that are important to solving a particular unique problem for a client and then coming up with that solution, that is not automatable yet. The way in which AI is trained it's based on existing knowledge. It's trained from large language models. So by definition, it's gathering stuff that has already been thought of and done. So it will come to you with the best average answer for the circumstances that you describe to it, and it might be new to you, but it's not going to be new to the profession or to sort of the whole body of knowledge. So that diagnostic capability still isn't available. And I say still, I don't think personally that it will ever be available. There are many that disagree with me on that, but I want to underline that point. On the other hand, we can automate work that's repetitive and that can be described in a procedure. And that's where AI really shines in terms of helping you to do that repetitive work in a way. So this can include, robots in production lines, automation in bookkeeping, which is one of the industries that's really being automated a lot, sales tracking, report generation, and this other one, professional support. Some of the prophecies, some of the projections in terms of this, we're saying that professional work can be supported at least 30% in terms of AI support. And my own experience would echo that we can, through the use of AI, do a lot of things much more quickly and easily. And in my perspective, at least, it's the stuff that was the most boring that I can now automate the most easily because it's the proceduralized kind of work. So anyway, that's my side on artificial intelligence. So the consulting profession of the future. This is where I start tying these things together because I think number one, collaboration is key. When I was first a management consultant, I was with a boutique type firm. We had a specialty, and the principal partner wanted to keep things pretty close. So I was trained. That was my first management consulting experience. I became a CMC immediately, but I didn't interact too much with my fellow CMCs because how do you do that without sort of sharing your IP, which is sort of your raison d'être. So I would back off on that quite a bit. So collaboration was not in my bailiwick. But once I formed my own firm, got more closely aligned with CMC Canada and working with others in other parts of the world through ICMCI, I found that sharing is in fact the key to being able to do better because that exchange of information helps both consultants to be better. So we need to, as a profession, embrace change. The future of consulting is how do we together as a profession understand each other's work, help each other to do better, and to be able to move forward in the best way possible. So ICMCI, the Global Federation of Management Consulting Institutes, has an increasingly important role to play in all things, including professional conduct. Because as a member of an institute, we all become a part of that global community of management consultants. And there's a lot of them, 64,000 plus individual consultants, over 8,000 CMCs, all of them who have said, by becoming a member of an institute, that they want to be a professional. They're not selling their time for money. They want to understand about how they can use this diagnostic capability to help clients to be more successful. So we do hold through this membership in institutes each other to account by signing that professional code of conduct. And again, I know many of you, probably most of you on this call are CMCs already, so I won't bore you with the details, but these three pillars of our professional code are critically important because that is what sets us aside from those selling time for money. We're dedicated to serving the interests of clients, transparency of representation, so we are always straightforward and transparent with them, and that professional behavior. So what I'd like to do now is spend a few minutes, and I want to be aware of the time. I've got about 15 minutes left because I do want to have time to answer the questions. I see there's quite a few questions coming in and some activity in the chat, so I want to have an opportunity to go over those with you. So the first question I get a lot is, what is the difference between a certified management consultant and ISO 20700? So the first one is that the certified management consultant designation is concerned solely with the competency of the individual. So this is about how well we are able to implement our specialty and to serve the client's best interest. So to become a CMC, not only do you have to demonstrate your expertise, you have to also be able to demonstrate successful client projects and go through the process of a review by your peers before you're accepted into the profession of management consulting. So the ICMCI competency framework for the CMC designation lays out what those different areas are in terms of business insight, practice capabilities, the behavior of us as consultants, and what our ethics and professional conduct are, and then all of that continuing professional development. So to me, this map is what sets us apart and which gives us the best opportunity as a profession to really stay ahead of that curve and to be able to provide the service that we need to provide to our client organizations. So the CMC is the property of ICMCI. I have to do a little PS here that this is called the racetrack logo. The CMC logo was developed by Canada and was donated by and adopted by ICMCI as the global market of the CMC profession. So got a little feather in the cap for Canada for actually developing that mark in the first place. We're concerned with personal confidence, we cover all aspects of consulting activities depending on the specialty of the member, and it's limited to use by member institutes, so CMC Canada, for example, and by consultants who have been who have become certified management consultants. And as you can see here, these are the different aspects. I guess I spoke ahead on this slide, so I've talked about these things that differentiate and that a CMC needs to prove to peers. So that's the CMC, the certification. It's the pinnacle of what it means to be a professional, and it's transportable. It's one of the only professions that I'm aware of where the profession of management consulting is that CMC designation is totally transportable to any country in the world, either through another geographically based institute like CMC Canada, or the CMC Global Institute, which provides services virtually in every other country of the world. So ISO 20700 then is really the baseline for the delivery of management consulting services. It's the property of ISO. It's concerned with process, not competence. So it's all about how do we deliver management consulting services. It's concerned only with managing a consultancy project. So it's not concerned about how you as an organization do your work or what your specialty might be, but it's how do we do management consulting with our client organizations. And because by the nature of ISO, anyone can buy the standard and apply it. So it's available for use by anyone. The structure of the ISO standard is it comes with its scope, terms, definitions, and principles. And the principles are all around transparency and ease of use in terms of the standard. And one of the principles is that it is not certifiable. So this is one of the first service delivery. It is, in fact, the first service delivery standard that was ever developed by ISO. And by its very nature, each project is completely unique. So therefore, there's no certification against a standard way of providing consulting services. So there are three major aspects to it. There's the contracting phase, there's the execution phase, and there's the closure phase. So this is slightly a higher level than we learn in as becoming a CMC in Canada, which has 5 different areas, but the 5 work very nicely into these 3. So we are talking about these the same thing. I'm on a committee that's now looking at ISO 20700 for its maintenance and its promotion. And we actually had a meeting started at 6 a.m. this morning. Not as bad as the poor guy in New Zealand was started at 11 p.m. at night. So still, it's a way of us in the profession coming together to provide ISO, because it's an ISO committee, to provide them insight and support on how we can improve this standard going forward. And one of the things that we're talking about building into the standard is another phase at the front of this, which is the initiation of a project. So we're completely silent on that in ISO 20700, and yet a large part of the work we do as consultants is being out there with clients, seeking work and talking about how we would support them in their work. The other aspect of this are 12 policies that have been developed and are provide a support for the use of the ISO 20700 standard. So altogether, this becomes the standard which is used for the baseline. And I use that word baseline very I use that with purpose. I use it because it is a baseline. Any of us who can improve upon that baseline is good. We can all do better than the baseline, but this to be delivering management consulting services as a profession means that we have to do at a minimum the approach that's outlined in the ISO 20700 um, standard. So the aim is really to improve that transparency between the client organization and the consultant. And we do that through working through and having discussions with the client at each one of those different phases of the project that are detailed in the standard. The way in which that standard is used depends on the the consultant and the client in terms of deciding what it is that needs to be discussed. So you can think of about it as a huge checklist. What are the things that could be discussed? And some of them, yeah, check, we don't need to do this. So for example, regulatory implications. It might be a project without regulatory implications, but you should agree that there are no regulatory implications, then you can move on. But if there are, then you have the discussion. We have, as a resource, this is published and managed by ICMCI. It's a website called ISO20700.org. There's a QR code where you can log in, and it provides some oversight about ISO 20700. Some events are discussed there and demonstrated there. There's photos, and there's also some discussion about this program and how it works. So that's a resource to you. Um, so why should CMCs take the ISO 20700 checklist training? Um, the One of the things that we do with the training that as you saw in my first cover sheet, I am an ISO 20700 trainer, certified, not certified, but approved by CMC Global Institute. So I take the lead on providing management consulting services in all those white spaces in the world where there are no management consulting institutes that are geographically based, and also provide them in countries where there are not as yet any certified trainers. I keep saying certified. I can't be using that word in that way, where there are no approved trainers for ICMCI. So these are, you see here, some of the early participants that registered and took the course. Some of you might even be on the line, or you'll certainly recognize some of these people. And I know some of you on the line now are from overseas as well. So welcome. So on my website, and also there's a link on the CMC Canada website, you can get those endorsements from people around the world that have taken the training and learn how they perceive the training. The checklist training, the checklist is a tool that was developed by ICMCI. So it takes the standard and then using that standard develops a checklist that we can use that's easy to fill out and is a tool that we can use to ensure that we can have that transparency with the client. So usually if one wants to implement a standard, you have to buy the standard and you either hire an expert or you spend a lot of time studying and learning about how to use that standard and how to apply it in the best way possible. Here, by having the checklist and taking the training that we've provided to support that, you're able to implement the standard almost immediately. In fact, part of the training is a case study, and the final part of the training is completing the checklist for a case study type client. The checklist helps keep us current with industry best practices, and once you have the training, you're on our mailing list, so we'll keep you up to date with any new changes that might be in place. And you use proof of your completion of the training as for marketing purposes. So this is a way of you being able to differentiate yourself in the marketplace. ISO 20700 is ISO is a very well recognized brand. So by being able to talk about having received this training in terms of the use and for the delivery of projects using ISO 20700 is powerful in the marketplace. Um, then so that's kind of the self-driven aspects in terms of how can we improve our practice and differentiate ourselves. On the other side, it's a better experience for the clients because they will have a better understanding of accountabilities during the project. They'll have a better and clearer understanding of how the project should pace and how you communicate during the project. And clients, in my experience, feel more empowered because having walked through the checklist with the consultant, they get a better sense of what management consulting is, what you're doing, and what they can expect. And I made this point already that you can distinguish yourself and your deliverables from competitors. So everybody that takes part in the program is certified, receives the certificate of completion. Again, I have this nasty habit of using certified in the wrong way because remember, ISO 20700 is not certifiable, but we do provide the certificate of participation to identify that the person has completed the training and has become a recognized practitioner in the use of ISO 20700 for the delivery of management consulting services. And there's also a JPEG that's been delivered. You saw that on my title slide that one can use for marketing. So if you want to learn more about ISO 20700, you can check out the CMC Canada website and you can register there. It's an online learning program, so people can learn at their own pace. People have up to 30 days to take the program, and it can be extended for a minor fee after that if people get tied up and you get that big project just after you signed up, for example. There's three separate modules that have been developed for the program. So the main module is about 4 hours long, which has the case studies, is designed for CMCs. So if you're a certified management consultant, that is the module for you. Then if you're a member of an institute, and whether or not you're thinking of becoming a CMC or not, but if you're a member of an institute and want to take the ISO 20700 training, there's another upfront module which takes about 2 hours. So that person would take module 2 and module 3. So the one for the member plus the one for that CMCs also get, and in 6 hours you'd have the total program. And then there's one for, we call it the general learner version. So it's somebody that's thinking about being a consultant, or has just become a consultant and wants to understand more about the profession. There's an introductory module, also about 2 hours long, which kind of introduces them to the concept of consulting and the profession of consulting. So that person then gets 2 + 2 + 4. So it's an 8-hour course, again, all online and easy to access. For those of you who are not in Canada, you can click on the right-hand side, or use the QR code, and that'll bring you to my website where you'll find a map, and you can click on that map. It'll bring you to a large interactive map. Click on your own country, and if there is ISO training provided in your country by that institute, it'll give you a link to the institute. If the training is available through the online learning program that I oversee, then it'll bring you into the right page for you to register for that. So we're coming up on the 45-minute mark. I can't believe it. I'm pretty close to the timeline. So I will respond to additional questions. So if at the end of this you find that something comes up you're curious about, or some comment you have, or some insights you have, if you want to influence some of this preliminary thinking into revisions and updates to ISO 20700, feel free to reach out. I'm always happy to hear from people. I have a consultants page on my website, and there are resources in there for management consultants, including a consultants blog, or you can also subscribe to my e-news. So please do. We'll start with, as you said, start answering questions that are there. So please put those in. While you're getting those in, I just want to quickly, just so we don't lose track of this, because no, we will come back to that at the end. Let's just stick with the Q&As for now. And then I have three closing slides and sort of additional, which include some additional resources for you.
All right. Perfect. Thank you so much, Dwight, for your insights. We'll now move into the Q&A, as you mentioned. We do have a couple questions already in the bank here. Let me open up the Q&A. And these first questions come from Robert. CMC has been very good for me. Will what you've told us about disruption in consulting in Canada be experienced as ripples back and forth across the border to the south for us with respect to the disruptors as the profession and its landscape matures?
I believe so, yes. I don't have any, sort of grounded evidence around that. My own experience in consulting with the US has been a little bit rocky in terms of cross-border, in spite of the fact that we had the free trade agreement that allowed free transport of management consultants. And that was before some of the disruptions we've seen with tariffs and counter tariffs. So just my sense of the direction of what's happening in the economy in the U.S. and its approach to economics means that there will be waves. So I think talking about ripples back and forth across the border are correct. And if we are working in the US and need to be physically there, be very sure that work with CMC Canada to get the right paperwork for crossing the border. The other advice I'd do is fly rather than drive. I've tried driving a couple of times and been turned back, but flying, so you seem to get border officers that are a bit more understanding of what's going on.
All right. Thank you, Dwight. Next question comes from Paula. So CMC Canada is a Canada-specific certification program, while ISO 20700 is a globally recognized standard.
I think I've answered that question already, Paula, but I'll just reiterate. So both are global standards. CMC is overseen by ICMCI, so there's a global professional development body, which is part of ICMCI, or some call it CMC Global, which oversees the standard, and it is completely transferable and transportable. So CMC is recognized around the world, and once you have a CMC, if you move countries, you can change to that institute and be recognized in that country. And I see that as the top line, the pinnacle of the profession. And then the baseline for entering the profession is ISO 20700, which is also globally implemented and available. So both are available in different countries. It's just different levels of the profession. ISO 20700 being the baseline and the CMC being the certification.
All right. Thanks, Dwight. Um, does the checklist training for ISO 20700 include the purchase of the standard?
It does not include a purchase of the standard, but we give you information about where you can obtain the standard. It's highly recommended that you do have the standard, but the checklist replicates most of the steps in the standard. So as long as one familiarizes themselves with the standard, they don't need to have their own version. But I do recommend that you purchase it and review it and have it as part of the course.
All right. Next question comes from Professor Stefan Wiewijk. A question concerning ISO 20700. Please could reconfirm if it is not accredited verification nor certification of ISO compliance issued by ISO, your training is a pre-recorded course with a confirmation of completion?
Yes, a touch more than that, because it's not simply somebody's watched some video and therefore they get to have the recognition. So there are quizzes throughout which people need to complete. So we want to be sure people are paying attention. It's broken up into segments, so it's not like you have to sit there for an hour and watch my head talking at you. It's broken up into segments that are easy to digest. And then at the end, there is a case study that requires somebody that would have knowledge to be able to complete that case study, submit it. I personally review and mark that case study, and then on successful submission of that case study, then the documentation of successful completion is sent around to everyone.
Right. We have a couple questions that overlap with each other, so I'm gonna read both to you, Dwight. Can you tell us how long it takes to complete ISO 2700 course? And the other question is how many hours for only module 3?
Okay, so the entire course, if you were not a member of the institute and but a member of the general public, it would take about 8 hours. And I say about because there's some portions where you're observing discussions. There's some portions where you're reviewing a case study. So people will spend more time in some sections than others. Some people will review some parts of the video more than once for interest's sake. And then the completion of the case study takes some people longer than others, but on average about 8 hours. And it has three modules. So module three, which is where if you're a CMC, you take only module three. That's about 4 hours. If you're a member but not yet a CMC, you'd take modules two and three, which is a total of about 6 hours. And if you're a member of the general public, it's modules one, two, and three, which is about 8 hours.
Sure, perfect. Um, this question comes from Pat. You had mentioned a shift away from membership in professional associations in management consulting. Would the same hold true for other professions in your view?
It does. It's not as extreme in accredited professions because I gave the example of a medical doctor. You have to be a member of the College of Physicians and Surgeons in order to be a medical practitioner. So you have to join and you have to pay your annual membership fee. But even in those ones, there's a drifting apart where people aren't as involved in the profession as they might have been at one time. And the professions therefore find it's hard to engage their members. It's hard to be able to get them involved in the way that they would have liked them to be able to do that. So I think it is ongoing, and even our own institutes are working hard to figure out what is the best way to add value to our members so that in addition to knowledge, they can get the most value. And this is where I talk about the collaboration and the coming together. I think the biggest role that institutes have right now is to provide that networking between like-minded individuals that want to be professional management consultants, want to be the best that they can be, and want to share information and learn from each other so we can stay ahead of that curve as change takes place in the economy.
All right. Thanks, Dwight. Just a quick note, for those of you who need to leave right now, don't worry about it. Feel free to join your other commitments. The recording of the session will be available and will be sent to you via email within the next 2 days. We do have a couple more questions, Dwight. Given the disruption you so clearly articulated, including the accelerating pace of change and the trend in clients towards smaller, lower cost projects with a shorter duration, how is this expected to impact the ISO 20700 standard and the heavy documentation and administration standards associated with formal designations and frameworks?
Um, that's a big question. And in fact, we had a 2 hour meeting about almost exactly that today, Paula, when we're talking about what is the standard and where we're going forward. So the logic that we have right now is that there's a layered approach. So ISO 20700 lays out that baseline for what it is to deliver, sort of contract, deliver, and close a professional management consulting project. So that's what the standard is now. But then below that, there's that layer of all of the different specialties that we have and client uniqueness. So what we're wrestling with is how do we continue to keep a simple but enhanced standard that will be as useful as possible to consultants to improve our practice, but also not overwhelm our clients in terms of what it is and how we need to bring them in. So you're asking exactly the right question. I don't have an answer for what it will look like, but I do anticipate it will remain relevant because I do believe that as there is increasing disruption and as change is happening faster and faster, clients will be looking for, what is that mark that gives me some assurance that the person I'm talking to knows what they're talking about. If you're hiring a person from overseas to do something for you because the salary is good and the knowledge is there, how can you be sure that the knowledge is actually there? Well, it's the same in consulting. How can you be sure that that person has the competence and will do this in a professional way? So I think both the CMC and ISO 20700 have a significant role.
All right, thanks,
Can
Dwight.
we take one more question? Then I'll do those last four slides quickly so that most people that are logged in for the hour, and then we can finish off any additional questions if we need to.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. In terms of our changing industry, would you sum it up by saying that one, increased emphasis on root causes strategy and client interest in implementation support, meaning tactics, leading to ROI?
Yes, I think that's what we're learning from our client organizations. It is that it's giving them the help they need to understand what are the symptoms and what's the root cause, and then once they have identified with our help what that root cause is giving them approaches, methodology, and supporting them in the solution of that, but leaving them with enough that they can sustain that change over time. So just a couple of questions left, and I think some people have put a couple of questions in the chats, but I just wanted to very quickly talk about the ISO 20000 checklist training. I think I've covered that off pretty well. So that course is available. It's online on demand at any time. On October 21st, I will be doing a professional development webinar called Beyond the Org Chart, which is all about how can we as consultants use the scientific principles of organization design and human capability to better support our clients. Organization design has been seen and is typically seen as an art, and it's typically organic growth. And we as management consultants need to get past that and really learn about what those scientific principles are. So this is not typically discussed in these kinds of fora. So I'm just going to be really delighted to introduce you to these concepts on October 21st. So if you know of anyone who might be interested, please refer them to this page in your participant handbook. And I will be publishing some blogs on this, and I know Jusette and the team at CMC Canada will be promoting that. There are also some upcoming workshops. So the one on AI is coming up very soon, provided by CMC Ontario, and CMC BC is having their third Thursday coming up, and their 2025 CMC BC Awards night. So check out the website for that information. So I will take whatever questions are back, but I wanted to make sure that I thanked you before the end of the 1 hour because some of you will have other calls. So thank you very much for joining and participating, and good luck in all of your practices. I really appreciate that. So I'll hand it back to you, Jusette, for any other questions that we could have.
Yes, there is one more question regarding professional designations generally. Could you please comment on the significance of the legal recognition of the CMC designation in provincial institutes across Canada?
Um, I'm Thanks, Tim. I think you might know better the answer to that question than I do. I know that there was a major move around the time I was getting my certification. I'm not going to say when that was, but it was double digits of years ago. To have provincial designations so that we would be regulated, and because of the federalist approach in Canada, professions are regulated provincially rather than federally, and the role of the institutes was set up in such a way where the CMC could be delivered provincially. I know we weren't successful at that point, and I don't know if there's any thoughts to be moving forward on that. At the moment, I know of only one country in the world where the profession is regulated, and that's Austria. So if you want to be a professional management consultant, you have to register, go through and um, and register and pay your fee and become a member of the institute. So they're the leading institute in terms of numbers around the world. So that it's not clear to me, but thank you for raising that, Tim.
All right. Thanks, Dwight. And I think that brings us to a close. I would like to again, Dwight, thank
About
you.
this question from Neil here about getting a discount. So it's
Oh,
those,
yes.
yeah. So
Let
that's
me.
one
Oh,
for you
yes.
to answer,
For
actually.
those of yeah, for those of us who are associated working on full accreditation, any chance of a promo code for the 2 module course who attended today? Email direct to you. Yes, if you are interested, feel free to contact us. Our email is events@cmc-canada.ca. I will write that down in the chat. And just let us know that you're interested in taking any of the ISO 2700 courses, and we'll be in contact with you for sure.
Okay, well, thank you, everyone. I really appreciate your time today, and best wishes for the rest of the day. Thank you,
Yeah, thank you
Seth, for
so much,
hosting so
Dwight.
well. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for this, and also thank you to everyone for joining us today. Just a quick reminder, we will be sending an email in the next few hours with all the resources that Dwight talked about, as well as the recording of the session for you to review if you missed any of it. And yeah, thank you for joining, and have a great day. Bye, Dwight.
Bye.